The Battle of Bamber Bridge was caused by a friendly fire incident amongst the US military, but unlike friendly fire being accidental due to many partaking factors, this incident was deliberate. As such, it may leave you wondering, how can something so serious like deliberate friendly fire happen? Well, when you put your beliefs first and your brain second, things can get a little sloppy, shall I say. Allow me to explain, with a slightly long-winded backstory. It's April 1942, the height of World War II, and for Britain and America to prepare for a naval invasion against mainland Europe, America is sending its troops across the Atlantic into Britain. All these fresh off the boat Yankees, thousands of miles away from home. To think not only would you most likely die in fighting, but you'd have to spend your possible last moments in Britain. While the American soldiers were staying in Britain, waiting for their duty time to come, they had to adapt to the British culture, and since a good amount of these soldiers were most indefinitely exposed to oversaturated views on liberty, democracy, and apple pie, they had these little how-to guides, that went into detail about how to live, behave, and to understand British society. A few examples of what's in the book is conversation starters: know what to and not to talk about, don't eat too much food, remembering that Britain has and is still being affected by the Blitz, this isn't what the country looks like 24/7, unless it's Birmingham, and most importantly, social spaces for all Brits and Americans to mingle with each other, mostly talking about pubs. Nothing beats a cold pint in an afternoon with other troops, no stress, just relaxing with everybody else, no matter who they were. Unless you were a black US soldier at Bamber Bridge, while you could have relaxed in a pub with the locals, it was vastly different to relaxing with your white counterparts. Sounds a little too specific, but you see, the US Armed Forces was still heavily segregating its black and white troops around this time, having parts of the army like battalions or regiments being purely white or purely black, and as expected, it leads to racial tensions between the two. At Bamber Bridge, there were two separate regiments, one made up of entirely black soldiers, and a military police company, consisting of entirely white soldiers. US commanders had even demanded the pubs in Bamber Bridge to become segregated, and the pubs had complied with them, but gave them the old switcheroo, and segregated all pubs in the area for black troops only. Tensions got even higher thanks to problems back home, with the Detroit race riots. This was a bit of a morale blow to the black troops stationed at Bamber Bridge. Racial tensions reached their limit on the 24th of June 1943. At the Ye Old Hob Inn pub, a group of black soldiers were there, getting a little pick-me-up and mingling with some Brits in the pub. Two military police personnel enter the pub after being told there was a supposed disturbance there. I wouldn't really call having a good time a disturbance, but these two MPs had orders to investigate the situation, and arrest any soldier there for being disorderly, left their camp without a pass, and for not being dressed properly. They saw one soldier, not dressed in the right uniform, and began arguing in the pub trying to get him out to arrest him, with British soldiers and servicewomen defending the soldier and even challenging the MPs. The sergeant of the regiment in the pub defused the situation, and the MPs were about to head on back. A glass was thrown at their jeep. Both spoke to their captain and lieutenant, and got told to do their job and go back to arrest the soldiers. They picked up reinforcements and found the soldiers on their way back to their base. Now there wasn't any Brits about to intervene. A fight broke out between the two groups. The military police fired at the soldiers, with a stray bullet killing one of the soldiers. Those shots signified the Battle of Bamber Bridge had begun. The soldiers and MPs returned to their bases, with rumors and fear spread among the soldiers that the MPs were out for blood. While Commanding Officer Major George C. Harris tried to calm the situation, Lieutenant Edwin D. Jones of the regiment persuaded that George would be able to round up the military police involved and bring them rightfully deserved justice. But justice was looking blind again, as more military police arrived at the soldiers' base looking for round two. Obviously, they weren't just gonna be intimidated by the thought of being shot dead, they armed themselves and fought against the MPs. The main fighting between the two lasted for around 4 hours. Luckily enough no one else was killed, just 7 injuries. 2 months later, 2 trials were conducted against 39 black soldiers. The first trial happened in August, with 4 soldiers who were involved in the incident at the pub. All 4 were found guilty, given a dishonorable discharge, and sent to hard labor. For some reason, 3 of them got 3 years of hard labor, and 1 of them only got 2.5, and then later on one of these convictions got overturned. The second trial took place in September, with 35 soldiers all trialed. 7 of them were acquitted, and the rest were convicted, with sentences that ranged from just 3 months to 15 years, and a quarter of those convicted got 12 years or over. But the sentences were not going to hold up for long, thanks to the court re-reviewing the case, and all the sentences got reduced. After D-Day, 6 more sentences got reduced. Most of the cause for the violence got blamed for the incompetence of the MPs and their blatant racism. The commander of the 8th Air Force had even integrated the segregated trucking units. Pretty progressive for the US, I must say. Only took them another 5 years to outright ban segregation in the military. He even purged and replaced the racist and incompetent officers in that command. Despite this positive effect from something so horrible, racial incidents between black and white American soldiers throughout Britain were still going on, but they were tamer when compared to Bamber Bridge. It's kinda wild to think that something like this happened somewhat recently, even if it is almost 80 years ago. But anyway, that's that for this one. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.